What is up, car and tech fans? Welcome back to another garage tinkering video. Now, me saying I want to kind of reinvent what a dashboard is in a car is all well and good, but we'd be remiss if we didn't take a look at some good and bad examples of digital dashboard design that exist already in cars from the last few years. So in this video, we're going to take a look at a digital dash that I dislike, one that I actually really do like, and then we're going to see what it's like to drive my 350Z with no dashboard at all. How does it change the driving experience, and what does it teach us that we do and maybe don't need from a digital dash? Without further ado, let's go take a look at a couple of cars. Now, you obviously can't talk about modern dashboard design or, unusual integrations in a car without considering Tesla. So we're in this Model 3 of a complete stranger. I just knocked on their door and said, I'm filming this video. Would you let me just borrow yours for 15 minutes? And they were like, yeah, sure, go ahead. So here we are. What wonderful people there are out in the world. And unlike any other car, the Tesla doesn't really have a dashboard at all. It's got a screen, it's got a tablet, and that's it. And absolutely everything that you need to know about the car and way more is all here. Obviously, Tesla has added tons of technology into cars that didn't exist previously. Being able to see where other cars and pedestrians are in the street and get highlighted on a map is kind of cool. But, for the most part, you can see them with your eyes. And we know that that technology is not always that reliable, has been shown in some recent tests.
But would the kid look just as cool after the Tesla test? Fudge!
But things like the fact that the side cameras come on when you indicate in either direction just to make sure that you've checked out your blind spot is a very cool innovation and is something that we are going to be integrating into the 350Z. But as far as dashboards go, there isn't one. And directly in front of me is some wood paneling, and that's it. I don't think it's actually possible to see things like speedo and vital information without taking your eyes off the road and looking down towards this big screen. And now they have done things that obviously trying to consider minimizing that. All of the information that is most vital, your speed, the speed limit of the road you're on, and any contextual warning stuff is all in the top right of the screen. So it's intended to be seen without having to distract your eyes too far off looking at the road in front of you. But everything about the screen is very bright, it's very attention grabbing. I'm not 100% sure if I would want to have something that is pulling my attention quite that much. Is there fantastic innovation in the Tesla? Of course. Is there too much? Maybe. One thing that's obviously really noteworthy in the Tesla is there's no controls, there's no buttons. Everything is behind that screen. So if I want to change the AC, which is currently on, I know I've got to search through this screen somehow, and maybe it's this manual 19. Yeah, there we go. But it's hidden away down here with a little touch. It's definitely not as ergonomic or as tactile as a big twisty knob. Is this the way that cars are going to go in the future? Is this the modern standard that everyone's adopting? No. Let's go take a look at a different example of a modern dashboard. Don't get me wrong, I don't think it's all bad, and there are some nice examples of digital dashboards available which aren't too overwhelming. In fact, I'm sat right now in my next door neighbour's Vauxhall Grandland. Now, I'm not a huge fan of Vauxhalls in general, but when I was speaking to him, I was like, can I take a look at your digital dash? This one's quite good. I'll start sat in the car, nothing is on, it's all blank because the car is effectively off. If I press and hold start, we get it boot up, and the information in front of me is actually relatively minimal. Got a big nice speedo front and center. The sat nav is on the left hand side. Obviously the car's not started, so it's telling me how to start the car if I want to. Clutch down and press start. We've got a few accessory lights that show things like the battery, the fact the handbrake's on, my seatbelt isn't on, and then just some stuff about the general condition of the car, the water temperature, the amount of fuel that we've got on, how many miles until we need to refuel, how many miles per gallon we're getting, which will makes sense when you're actually driving and how long the trip has been. If we start the car up, so clutch, the views change a little bit. So on the left, we now have an RPM gauge and the sat-nav of the local area. All quite pretty. And this one is not too overwhelming. There's not too much information that's being thrown at you. Just a few kind of bare minimum bits. Speaking to the owner of this car, he was telling me about how all the screens are customizable. He's got it set up how he likes it. I'm not going to touch it. You don't mess with another man's dashboard. It's cardinal sin. And the only thing here that I think would frustrate me is the fact that we've got that repetition of the miles to empty. I don't think it's necessary to be there. But still, in a dashboard like this that is relatively minimal, we could probably do away with a lot of the stuff that's in here. Yes, we keep the speedo front and center, and yes, we keep the speed limit on the center. That's nice and easy. But the amount of miles we've got until it runs out, do we need to know that until we're, say, under a much lower threshold? So 280 miles. Does it really matter until we're at maybe 60 miles, 70 miles? What about miles per gallon? Does it really matter? Is it really going to change the way you drive? Is it going to make you drive more efficiently if the miles per gallon is pretty low? And your trip time, does it really matter? Does it matter that you've been out on the road for 45 minutes? The same with my water temperature. Does it matter? Unless it's problematically high, I don't need to know really what that number is. Maybe it could just come on if it was outside of an optimum range. Also RPM. There's a debate about whether or not it's needed for the most part. I can feel and I can hear when I tap it what the RPM is, and you can change gear instinctively without it, so potentially we can do without that, but some people like to have it. So we could minimize this dashboard entirely, get rid of all that information on the right, and just have a big picture of the sat nav bang in the middle, and then that's it. And then just bring up things like the temperature display or the fuel level only in the instance that you need to know about them. In the same way that seatbelt icon is. That seatbelt icon's on because I don't have my seatbelt on. As soon as you put your seatbelt in, it goes away. So it's giving me contextual information as and when I require it, not all the time. Maybe there's a big argument to extend that out to all functions, not just the ones that you think need to be contextual. Finally, there is one thing about this dash that I actually quite like. When you turn it off, you get a summary of your trip. It tells you how many miles you've got left, how long your trip was, gives a little breakdown of the car. It's actually quite a neat little function. So if there is something that needs your attention before you get in the car next time, like, I need to know next time I've got to go fuel up, or my tire pressure is low, or something like that, you get that information at the end of your drive rather than being blasted at you whilst you're driving. Additionally, I like the fact that the controls in here are mostly tactile. You've still got tactile buttons for your AC and for your radio, even though they show the values in a digital format. It's kind of like a nice in-between of the two without hiding everything behind a touchscreen. So with this in mind, how could we create a better digital dash for my 350Z so it doesn't have all the information on it? So we'll go for a drive, and to start with, we're going to remove everything. I mean everything. The inside, my 350Z, on the other hand, is obviously a very different affair to that big Vauxhall SUV. Not only is it a lot lower and harder to get into, but what we're presented with is a lot more old school. Typically, we have 3 small center gauges, which show us the battery voltage, the oil pressure, and a multifunction, which I always used to keep on speed. And then in front of us, we've got the amount of fuel, oil temperature, all of my various accessory and warning lights, my rev counter, and my speedo over on the right, which, as we've said in previous videos, is kind of horribly placed because as soon as I have my hand on the steering wheel, I can't see it anymore. Plus, I've made a bit of a modification and built this custom center console. Typically, the stereo would be here because obviously it never used to have a screen when it came OEM in the car because the car's 21 years old. It would have just been a CD player. You wouldn't have to ever really look at it, so it could afford to be lower. I wanted to bring it up because I often use maps on here, and I don't want it to draw my eye unnecessarily far away from the road. So the question I pose is, what of this can we actually do without? How minimal can we go before it becomes unusable? So we're going to start by getting rid of everything, just using a couple of pre-cut pieces of round card. So let's cover all of this stuff up. So I'm officially without any dash. So what's the driving experience like when we've got no information? Is it livable? I think it's going to be too far, but let's get out on the road and see how everything just like feels. So as we head out into the wide world, straight away, my indicators, I can hear them. I don't need to necessarily see the flash. I can hear that. Now that might not be possible when I've got the music up louder, or when I'm, driving heavy and the engine sound is much louder. But for the most part, I don't need those indicators. Changing up in instances like this, I can listen for the car and I know when to change up based on the sound that the car would make. I never ever find myself looking at the RPM gauge. Like now, driving along, I'm in third, change to fourth. I'm keeping the RPM relatively low because I'm just doing sensible, normal driving around. I can tell just by listening to the car and the feel of the car and the vibrations through the pedal and through my hands that I'm keeping the RPM in like a normal, acceptable range. Now, there are clearly instances where seeing the RPM is useful. And usually that's when you're trying to optimize your gear changes for speed and acceleration. So for example, in this car, we rev up to about 7,000 is red line. But according to the manual, the optimum RPM to change up for acceleration is 4,400. So maybe it would be good if I had some notification that said you're at your optimum range, and then from there it starts to get less optimum as you go up towards 7,000. So 7,000 is the end, the red line, and 4,400 is the start line of optimum. So that might not necessarily be useful to day-to-day driving, where you don't need to hit the absolute perfect RPM every time you're changing up. But if you're on the track and you're trying to shave tenths of a second off your lap, it probably is going to be useful. Now, there are obviously instances where having a speedo is very, very necessary. Now, I'm stuck on the motorway right now, and I'm on a 40-mile-an-hour stretch before it hits national speed limit, and I've got no idea how fast I'm going. It feels like 40-ish, but it could be more, it could be less. But I'm going to cheat and check my little speedo down here, and I'm doing 44. So, yeah, on the upper end of what you should be doing. And it's difficult to tell, especially in a car that can go quickly, effortlessly. Like coming out into the overtaking lane, it's going to national speed limit, so I stick my foot down. Again, I can listen to change up high. Well, where's 70? Is this 70? Is this 75? I don't know. I have no concept of how quick I'm going. I'm not going faster than the cars in front of me, so ballpark. I'm going to cheat again. Oh, I'm bang on 70. So obviously speedo is an important one. We need that information all the time. That's a non-debatable. But, everything else in the car I can kind of live without. There are obviously a couple of bits of information that it would be useful to have, but in a contextual format. Like, is my check engine light on? Probably is the answer. To be fair, my sports caps throw check engine lights all the time. How much fuel do I have? I have no concept. I know I was low before I left the house, so how far can I actually go on this little drive today? I don't know. That's kind of like the only thing that is worrying me. Similarly, How's my water temperature and my oil pressure? Are they good? But I don't need to read them. If they're good, then they're good. I'll be honest, by having nothing here, I can definitely feel that I'm not darting my attention away from the road quite as much to look at things, which is good. One of the biggest pains of this car is every junction that you pull up at, somebody wants to race you. Usually RS series Audis and BMWs. Idiots. No thank you. I've got nothing to prove and way too much to lose. Now that I've seen that Vauxhall's interior with the map right in front of me, I quite like it. I think if there was one in this centre gauge, that would be pretty cool. So let's build that. But all of this opens kind of like the question, if all the stuff that is usually on these screens isn't on these screens anymore, what is going to be? And that's an interesting question, because I think the answer is going to be, well, it depends. It's going to be circumstantial information. For example, when I go into reverse, what if these 3 screens all became reverser cameras, so middle, right, and left? That'd be neat. We can do that with the new ESP32 P4 chip of dev boards. We can do that. We can put video onto these things. But what else might we have on there? And the honest answer is I don't know. And one of the things I love about actually having a background in user experience design is that it's okay to say, I don't know what this thing needs to do. And the way we find out is by building it, testing it, and then seeing what we miss, what we lack, and then adding things in as we go. In software development, there's the principle of the MVP, the minimum viable product. What's the minimum amount of stuff we can do and create and it still works? So that is exactly how we're going to build out this new system in a way that is different to how anyone else has potentially done it before, because we're going to make it dirt simple. We're going to have the things we just spoke about, speedo, and a couple of contextual things that come up if we need to have attention drawn to them. Otherwise, we'll keep them very, very simple, very clean, very nothing. But everything beyond that, we'll figure that out as we go. We don't need to answer the question of how does everything need to be built in like one iteration. We could do many and see what we need and what sticks. So yeah, I feel that a lot of current digital dashboard design sucks. I think there's too much stuff available on the car that you don't need. You've got things that are distracting, they pull your attention from the road, they're overly bright, and at night aren't a particularly nice experience to be inside the car. We're going to try and change that. So over the next few weeks and months, we're going to start building this thing in an iterative way. We'll start very simply, get the easiest information on there, and then we'll build up on it a little bit at a time, obviously showing the process and all the code and making it open source so you guys can take it and adapt it if you want for your own things. We're also going to look at how we can use things like the new P4 chip to embrace technology for things like cameras and sat nav that doesn't suck, that isn't really slow or low quality. We're going to massively embrace technology, but not let it take over everything that we're trying to achieve here, which is really the redefinition of what these dashboards need to be. So my question to you is, what information that's in your car do you feel like you have to have? What could you not live without? Is it what I've just gone on about, or is there something else that your car tells you or offers you that you can't do without? What is your minimum viable product specification? What do you have to have? Let me know in the comments and we'll talk about it a little bit more there, I guess. Anyway, that's it. for another one. Whatever you do with the rest of your day, folks, have a wicked one. I'll see you next week at the same time, Wednesday, 2 p.m. Take it easy, peeps. Bye-bye.